Every second, somewhere in the world, someone takes a bite of a hamburger. It could be a teenager grabbing lunch after school, a family sharing dinner, or a traveler ordering a familiar meal in a country thousands of miles from home. From roadside diners in America to street cafes in Tokyo, luxury restaurants in Paris, and fast food chains in Lagos, the hamburger has become one of the few foods recognized almost everywhere on Earth. It's simple: a cooked beef patty tucked inside a sliced bun, often layered with cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, onions, pickles, and sauces. Yet behind this seemingly ordinary sandwich lies a story that stretches across continents, empires, wars, migrations, and centuries of human history. But there's one question that has puzzled people for generations. Why is it called a hamburger when there's no ham in it? The answer is far stranger than most people imagine. In fact, the hamburger wasn't invented by a single person. It wasn't born in a famous restaurant. And despite what millions believe, its story doesn't begin in America. To uncover the truth, we must travel back hundreds of years, long before golden buns, sizzling grills, or towering fast food signs existed. We must follow a trail that begins with nomadic horsemen, bustling European ports, and immigrants chasing new lives across the Atlantic. Only then can we understand how one of the world's simplest meals became one of its greatest cultural icons. This is the history of the hamburger. Today, hamburgers are eaten in nearly every corner of the globe. Whether handmade in a family kitchen or assembled in seconds by an international fast food chain, billions are consumed each year. Their popularity has inspired endless variations, from classic cheeseburgers to towering gourmet creations, topped with everything from avocado to truffle sauce. Entire restaurant empires have been built around them. Some chains sell millions of burgers every day, while independent chefs compete to reinvent them with new flavors and premium ingredients. In many countries, the hamburger has become more than just food. It is a symbol of convenience, globalization, and modern life itself. Few everyday objects have spread so quickly or become so deeply woven into cultures around the world. Yet this worldwide success creates an interesting illusion. Because hamburgers are everywhere today, it's easy to assume they have always existed. But for most of human history, there was no such thing. There were no burger restaurants, no sesame seed buns, no drive-through windows, not even the idea of placing a cooked meat patty between slices of bread. Like every invention, the hamburger had ancestors. Its story was shaped gradually over centuries, with each generation unknowingly adding another piece to the puzzle. To find its earliest roots, we must leave behind modern cities and travel to a time when survival depended on horses, open grasslands, and constant movement. Long before anyone imagined a hamburger, people had already discovered that grinding or finely chopping meat offered several advantages. It made tough cuts easier to chew. It allowed meat to cook faster, and it helped stretch valuable food supplies to feed more people. Ancient civilizations from Rome to Persia prepared minced meat in various forms, seasoning it with herbs, spices, and grains. Although these dishes looked nothing like today's hamburger, they revealed an important idea that would survive for thousands of years. Breaking meat into smaller pieces made it more practical and more versatile. But the next major chapter would emerge much farther east. Across the vast grasslands of Central Asia lived fierce nomadic tribes whose lives revolved around their horses. Among them were the Mongols, warriors whose military campaigns would eventually reshape much of the known world. Their armies moved with astonishing speed. Stopping to prepare elaborate meals was often impossible. Food had to be portable, durable, and easy to eat on the move. One popular solution was chopped or minced meat, which could be carried during long journeys and prepared quickly whenever the opportunity arose. Over time, stories began circulating that Mongol horsemen even placed raw meat beneath their saddles while riding. According to the legend, the pressure of the rider and the movement of the horse helped soften the meat before it was eaten. It's an unforgettable image, and one that has been repeated countless times. But historians remain divided over whether this practice actually happened, or whether it became an exaggerated tale told by later writers fascinated by the Mongols' reputation. Regardless of whether the legend is entirely true, one fact is clear. The Mongols helped spread culinary traditions across enormous distances. As their empire expanded across Asia and into Eastern Europe, ideas, ingredients, and cooking methods traveled alongside merchants, soldiers, and explorers. Among those influenced were the Tatar peoples of Eastern Europe. European travelers encountered dishes made from finely chopped or minced meat and began referring to them collectively as Tartar preparations. Over time, these dishes evolved into what many people now know as steak Tartar, although the modern version differs greatly from its historical predecessors. The important point isn't that steak Tartar became the hamburger. It didn't. Rather, these traditions demonstrated that finely chopped beef had already become an established way of preparing meat long before the hamburger itself existed. The idea had survived continents. Now it only needed the right place and the right moment to evolve into something entirely new. That place was a thriving port city on the edge of northern Germany. A city whose name would eventually travel farther than anyone living there could have imagined: Hamburg. By the 19th century, Hamburg had grown into one of Europe's busiest ports. Its docks never seemed to rest. Merchant ships arrived from Britain, Scandinavia, Russia, and the Americas, unloading cargo from distant lands before departing once again across the Atlantic. Thousands of sailors, traders, laborers, and travelers passed through the city every week, creating constant demand for food that was filling, affordable, and quick to prepare. Among the meals that gained popularity was a simple dish of seasoned minced beef, shaped into a thick patty and cooked before being served on a plate. It was hearty enough for dock workers and practical enough for busy kitchens. Outside Germany, it gradually became known as the Hamburg Steak, not because it contained ham, but because it was associated with the city of Hamburg. This small detail would eventually confuse millions of people. The word hamburger doesn't refer to the meat at all. It originally described something from Hamburg, just as a person from New York is a New Yorker. Long before it became the name of a sandwich, a hamburger simply meant something connected to that famous German port. As steamships became faster and ocean travel more reliable, another movement began to reshape history: people. During the 19th century, millions of Europeans left their homes in search of better opportunities overseas. Among them were hundreds of thousands of Germans. Many boarded ships departing from Hamburg, carrying little more than their belongings, their hopes, and the foods they knew best. When these immigrants arrived in the United States, they brought their culinary traditions with them. The Hamburg Steak was one of them. American restaurants, especially in cities with large German communities, began serving seasoned beef patties inspired by the original dish. Newspaper menus from the late 19th century mention Hamburg steak frequently, often served with onions, potatoes, or gravy. At this point, however, something important was still missing. There was no bun. Customers ate the Hamburg steak with knives and forks like any other main course. But America was changing rapidly. Factories expanded. Railroads connected distant cities. Construction crews, laborers, and office workers all needed meals that could be eaten quickly without interrupting the workday. A plated dinner wasn't always practical. Someone somewhere had the simple but revolutionary idea of placing the cooked beef between slices of bread. The result was portable, filling, and easy to eat with one hand. It seems obvious today. At the time, it changed everything. Here's where the story becomes surprisingly complicated. If you search for the inventor of the hamburger, you'll likely find several different names. Each comes with convincing evidence. Each has passionate supporters, and each claims to have created the world's most famous sandwich. One of the earliest and most popular stories belongs to Charlie Negreen, a 15-year-old vendor at the Seymour Fair in Wisconsin in 1885. According to local tradition, Negreen found that customers didn't want to stop walking around the fair just to eat a Hamburg steak with a knife and fork. To make it easier, he supposedly flattened the meat and placed it between two slices of bread. Whether every detail of the story is accurate remains difficult to prove, but it has become one of America's best-known hamburger legends. Another claim comes from Frank and Charles Minced, brothers from Ohio. Their story also begins in 1885 during a county fair in New York. As the tale goes, they ran out of pork for their sandwiches and substituted ground beef instead. Because the fair took place near Hamburg, New York, they supposedly named the new creation after the town. It's an appealing story. But historians have found little contemporary evidence confirming it. Then there is Fletcher Davis, often called Old Dave, from Athens, Texas. Supporters believe he served cooked ground beef between bread during the late 1880s, before introducing the sandwich to visitors at the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. If true, his version may have helped expose the hamburger to a much larger audience. Perhaps the strongest documented claim belongs to Louis Lasson, the founder of a small lunch establishment in New Haven, Connecticut. According to family history, sometime around 1900, a customer requested a meal that could be eaten quickly while rushing back to work. Lasson cooked ground beef, placed it between slices of toasted bread, and served it immediately. His restaurant still operates today, preserving that tradition and proudly presenting itself as the birthplace of the hamburger sandwich. So who deserves the credit? The honest answer is, no one knows for certain. Unlike inventions protected by patents or carefully documented in official records, the hamburger emerged during a period when countless cooks, vendors, and restaurant owners were experimenting with practical meals for busy customers. It's entirely possible that several people developed similar ideas independently. History doesn't always provide a single inventor. Sometimes, great ideas simply appear wherever the world is ready for them. By the beginning of the 20th century, regardless of who made the first one, the hamburger had arrived. But it still faced another challenge. Many Americans viewed ground beef with suspicion. Poor sanitation in meat processing had damaged public trust, and chopped meat often carried an unfair reputation as low-quality food. For the hamburger to become a national favorite, someone would have to change not only how it was served, but how people thought about it. That opportunity would come from an ambitious restaurant chain with an unusual name, White Castle. When White Castle opened in Wichita, Kansas in 1921, it wasn't simply selling hamburgers. It was selling confidence. Its founders understood that many people distrusted ground beef. Instead of ignoring those fears, they confronted them directly. The restaurants were painted bright white to symbolize cleanliness. Stainless steel surfaces reflected light. Employees wore spotless uniforms, and customers could often watch their food being prepared right in front of them. It was an unusual approach for the time. The message was clear. Nothing was hidden. The hamburger wasn't something to fear. It was something you could trust. White Castle also standardized nearly every part of the process. Patties were made to consistent sizes, cooked in predictable ways, and served quickly. Customers knew exactly what they would receive each time they visited. That consistency helped transform the hamburger from a regional curiosity into a dependable everyday meal. Even more importantly, White Castle proved that hamburgers could form the foundation of an entire restaurant business. It was a revolutionary idea. Without realizing it, the company had laid the blueprint for an industry that would soon spread across the globe. But an even bigger transformation was waiting just a few decades away. A transformation that would turn the hamburger into one of the most recognizable products on Earth. A small restaurant in California was about to change not only how burgers were made, but how the entire world thought about fast food. In the late 1940s, two brothers in San Bernardino, California, began asking a simple question. What if a restaurant worked more like a factory? Richard and Morris McDonald had grown frustrated with the slow pace of traditional drive-in restaurants. Large menus meant complicated kitchens, long waiting times, and inconsistent food. So they stripped everything back. They focused on a handful of items with the hamburger at the center. Every movement in the kitchen was carefully planned. Employees had specific roles. One grilled the patties, another dressed the buns, another wrapped the finished burgers. The entire process resembled an assembly line more than a restaurant. The result was astonishing. Customers received the same burger every time, prepared in seconds instead of minutes. This became known as the speedy service system, and it transformed the economics of fast food. But the McDonald brothers had little interest in building a worldwide empire. That vision belonged to someone else. In 1954, a traveling milkshake machine salesman named Ray Kroc visited the restaurant after noticing they had ordered several of his machines. Expecting to find an ordinary burger stand, he instead discovered a business unlike anything he had ever seen. Kroc immediately recognized its potential. Rather than opening one successful restaurant after another himself, he believed the system could be replicated through franchising. If every location followed the same procedures, customers could expect the same experience whether they were in California, New York, or eventually another continent. It was a radical idea at the time. Under Kroc's leadership, McDonald's expanded at a remarkable pace. The Golden Arches became one of the world's most recognizable symbols, and the hamburger became its ambassador. Before long, eating a burger was no longer just an American habit. It had become a global experience. Success attracts competition. As McDonald's expanded, other companies raced to offer their own vision of the perfect hamburger. Some promised larger patties. Others emphasized flame-grilled flavor, fresh ingredients, or customizable meals. Soon, a growing number of chains competed for customers across North America and beyond. Advertising campaigns became larger, menus became more creative, and each brand searched for a unique identity. This fierce competition became known as the Burger Wars. But the battle wasn't fought only in television commercials or restaurant parking lots. It also unfolded in kitchens around the world. In Japan, burgers appeared with flavors tailored to local tastes. In India, where many people avoid beef for religious and cultural reasons, restaurants developed chicken, fish, and vegetarian alternatives. In Australia, burgers were topped with beetroot. In Hawaii, pineapple found its way onto the bun. Across Latin America, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, local spices, sauces, and traditions reshaped the familiar sandwich into something uniquely their own. The hamburger had crossed oceans once before with immigrants. Now it was crossing them again as a global cultural icon. Remarkably, the basic idea remained unchanged. A cooked patty, bread. Simple ingredients, Yet almost every country found a way to make it feel local. The hamburger had become more than a recipe. It had become a blank canvas for culinary creativity. Today, the hamburger represents different things to different people. For some, it's comfort food. For others, it's convenience after a long day. To chefs, it's an opportunity to experiment with premium ingredients and bold flavors. To economists, it's a symbol of globalization, supply chains, and mass production. To historians, it's something even more fascinating. The hamburger tells the story of migration, of industrialization, of changing lifestyles, of technological innovation. Its journey mirrors the transformation of the modern world itself. Even the ingredients reveal centuries of history. The bun reflects the long evolution of bread making. Cheese carries traditions that stretch back thousands of years. Tomatoes originated in the Americas before spreading across Europe and beyond. Pickles preserve techniques developed long before refrigeration existed. The hamburger is not a single invention. It is a meeting place for many inventions. Every bite combines ideas from different cultures, different centuries, and different continents. For a food that seems so familiar, the hamburger continues to evolve. In recent years, chefs and food scientists have begun reimagining what a burger can be. Plant-based patties now mimic the texture and flavor of beef with remarkable accuracy. Researchers are exploring cultivated meat grown from animal cells, aiming to reduce the environmental impact of traditional livestock farming. Restaurants increasingly use automated grills, digital ordering systems, and even robotic kitchen assistants. The hamburger has entered the age of artificial intelligence and automation. Yet despite all these innovations, the heart of the hamburger remains surprisingly unchanged. People still gather around it, families still share it, friends still celebrate over it. Travelers still seek it out in unfamiliar places because it offers something comforting and recognizable. Very few foods have achieved that kind of universal appeal. So, why is it called a hamburger when there's no ham inside? Because the name was never about ham, it was about Hamburg. A bustling German port where a style of seasoned minced beef became closely associated with the city's identity, before crossing the Atlantic with generations of immigrants. From there, countless cooks, vendors, and entrepreneurs shaped it into something entirely new. No single person can confidently claim to have invented the hamburger. Instead, it emerged through centuries of gradual change, ancient traditions of minced meat, European ports, ocean voyages, American innovation, factory efficiency, global entrepreneurship. Each added another layer to the story. The hamburger is often described as simple food, but history tells a different story. Behind every burger lies the movement of people across continents, the exchange of cultures, the rise of industry, and the power of one remarkably practical idea. It's proof that some of history's greatest inventions aren't created in a single moment. They're assembled over generations. The next time you unwrap a hamburger, take a moment before the first bite. You're not just holding one of the world's most popular meals. You're holding centuries of migration, innovation, and human ingenuity, all between two halves of a bun. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden history behind one of the world's most iconic foods, don't forget to subscribe to Exhibit A, Everyday Objects. Every object around us has a story waiting to be discovered, and in our next episode, we'll uncover another ordinary item with an extraordinary past. Until then, thanks for watching.